Hey guys, today I'm going to go over replacing the water pump gaskets on a 2003 Tahoe. I think this is kind of a common problem. There's a lot of guys that have replacement videos on YouTube that talk about just replacing their water pump, but in all our actuality, once they get down to it, it ends up being the water pump gaskets. Alright, here's one of the gaskets, if you can see it. It's a metal gasket with a silicone washer on it, or that's the actual gasket. But anyways, that little washer right there ends up blowing out and you start getting leaking, and so that's what I got going on right now. My wife drove it about a week ago, pulled it in the garage, and we went to go somewhere, and I found there's a puddle about that big underneath the front of the truck, and it's really hard to see behind that water pump without like a little scope camera, but everything that I've read on it tells me that it's probably that gasket that's leaking. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, take it out, replace those two gaskets, maybe a third one, because there's a third one in there too, on the pump itself. And then we'll replace it and hopefully get it working. So let's get started. This is looking down at the top, from the top of the radiator. That guy right there, that's on the bottom of the radiator. That's going to be your drain plug. Alright, so here we are up underneath the radiator, and GM in their infinite wisdom looks like they didn't put a drain valve or a drain pipe on here. There's a drain pipe, but I guess I'm not seeing it, so you can see there's our, yeah, that's up there anyways. Alright, so while that guy's draining, I'm going to take my air intake off. I like how everybody, they say this little clip down here, they're like, oh yeah, you just stick a screwdriver in there and you twist it. Well, I did that and I just broke it. So, I don't know what the hell they were doing that I wasn't, but. So here's what that clip looks like. It's a little hook, and the hook is on the top of the right side there, and that clips into the left side. Gotta get the screwdriver up on top of this guy, because if you can see there, oop, there's the hook in there. So when you're plying this out, you got to get up on top of here. So I forgot to mention, I'm going to try and time this for you guys too. I got about 15 minutes into it, so I started at about 4, it's 5 o'clock now, so I started about 4:45. I know a lot of guys do these videos and they edit it down to like, 10-15 minutes, and you don't really end up finding out how long it actually takes them. Out of there, like that. There we go. Alright, so here's another one of them clips. Then we're going to pop these guys off. These are on each side of the shroud. They should just pop right up. I know they make little tools for this, but a screwdriver works too. There's our clip. There's 2 of them on this side, and then one there, and one right back here if you can see it. So take those 4 guys out, and then we'll take, on the back side here, we got a bolt there, and a bolt here. We'll take those off. I believe those are 10 millimeters. Alright, so I got the fan shroud out. That was no big deal. And did I mention why I hate doing this? Because no matter how hard I try, I always get crap all over the floor. So next time I think I'm going to get a little kiddie pool and just put it underneath there. And then we got to get this guy off. Alright, so I found my little, I got a 12-inch crescent wrench here, and I got a little marker on the side, and according to this thing it says about 1 inch and 7/16, so I don't know what that converts. It's probably metric, because most of the stuff is metric on these things. So 1 inch 7/16, or it'd probably be like a, what would that be, like a 25 or 27 millimeter wrench, something like that. I don't know, you can do the math. What I got here is a little spanner for a side grinder, like a little handheld side grinder, but it just happens to be big enough to where I can fit it in. That's why it is setting. I can fit it in 2 of those pinholes. So I'm going to see if I can reach around here. This guy, do a little reach around. And hopefully I don't knock the camera out of place. There, broke loose really easy. So there you go. If you can find one of these guys, they sell them at hardware stores like Menards or Lowe's. I don't know, this is like $5. Worked real good for this. Spin that guy off. So here's a 15mm socket, good old metric. Like my old 55 Chevy where I could take the whole damn truck apart with 6 US wrenches. Not quite this case anymore. It's a good time to check these, make sure there's no cracks or anything in it, especially on the back side here. I'll take a closer look at this one, but it looks pretty good. I don't know. Usually Gates or Goodyear, Gates are pretty good belts. Goodyears are pretty, Gator back, Goodyears are really good belts. So another thing to check for is you can check your pulleys here. That guy, that's your water pump. Power steering pump. Alternator. Grab some channel locks here. And this of course is going to be one thing you can do is ever so gently, ever so lightly grab this, give it a little wiggle, give it a little wiggle, give it a little wiggle. There we go. Need an extra twist. So here we go, we got that guy off. Just tuck that up towards the driver's side, get her out of the way. So this little guy, this little vent hose going up to the intake, we don't, you can take it off if you want, there's just a little clip up there, but I'm going to leave it on because I don't really see the need to take it off. And 3 15mm, 1, 2, and 1 underneath here, 3 15mm bolts. Take those guys out quick and get that guy off. If you guys are trying to do this without an extension with your wrench, I highly recommend this. Is I think a 2 or 3 inch extension. Makes life way easier when you're trying to get into some of these areas. There's our idler pulley. There's quite a bit of pressure on those guys too, I see. These guys, these look like your 2 little heater lines. Heat your front heater core and then your rear heater core. If you watch my other videos, you see I didn't replace the heater core, but we went through and replaced the module that controls the flaps on the back heater. And hopefully, if we look at that, being that we drained it, most of it's gone. So there's just a little tiny bit left in there, which is nice. Alright, so what we got going on here is we got 1, 2, 3 bolts there, and then on the driver's side 1, 2, 3. These are all 10mm. Using your short little extension, it's going to make life a lot easier. Get them bolts out of there. So we just got our last bolt here, and it should be free. And then we just let water flow everywhere. Awesome. Alright, so here is my engine block, and it doesn't look too bad, but that side and then this side, with the light in there, I did notice my bottom 2 bolts there, I don't know, you probably can't see them, but they're a little rusty, and then my top one there, there's a few little spots that I don't like. Look at all the gunk and crap on there. It's not looking too hot. And then this side too. I'm going to pull these off. I don't see any huge spots there, but this thing wasn't leaking that much when I pulled it, so yank this guy off. And then pull this off. No, stuck on there pretty good, but there's some gunk along there that stuff along there and here and there. So I'm pretty sure that was my problem. And then there is another, like an O-ring seal on the back of this plate, but I see nowhere on here that it would have been leaking. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up my surfaces here.
And then I'll clean up my block surfaces, because you can see I got some tarnish there that's not really coming off all that great. So we'll clean all this up, and then we'll get ready to put it back together. I was going to show you too, there's my two driver's side bottom bolts. This one has got crap all over it. That's all dried out, rusty from getting wet from the water pump. So that thing was probably been leaking for quite some time. It just wasn't leaking a lot. And here's the same thing on this one. That bolt shouldn't look like that. There's one of my bolts from the other side. If it'll focus. It's fairly clean. I mean, it's got a little dirt on it, but it's not near as bad as those other ones. So just another clue to realize that it's probably my gaskets. Alright, so here's a pulley I pulled off, and this is a tensioner pulley for the AC condenser down there. So it's going to end up going way down here, and here's your AC pump, and here's your crank pulley. So this guy sits down in there, and to get that off you got two 15mm bolts, and if you got a 3 AC universal to get down to the passenger side one, it's pretty easy to get off. But anyways, like I said, I was checking this stuff. You probably can't, might be able to hear it, but it doesn't sound very good. And it's also, I can wobble it. See the wobble in there? So I'm gonna, as long as we got all this stuff out, this is 2 bolts, easy to fix. I don't know, I'm hoping this doesn't cost more than 20-30 bucks. But it's a lot easier to replace these parts while we're all apart here. Alright, so here's my new tensioner for the AC unit, and I was just going to buy a pulley for this guy, but I took it apart and I found out that the shaft that the bearing was mounted on actually kind of spun loose. The new one's like, as of November 2014, this is 36 bucks with tax at the parts store. I'm sure you can get them cheaper online, but and this is kind of a mid-grade quality one, I guess. If you're going off price, it's mid-priced one. So, like I said, these guys are just a couple bolts. And let me just make note to wipe these pulleys off quick, because we got antifreeze all over them. And make sure it's lined up, and then we can let the tension go. And then I just want to double check all the way around to make sure that your belt is lined up with all your grooves. So there we go. Now we got our new AC tensioner pulley in there. If you can see here, I got my surfaces cleaned up. Took a razor blade and a little wire brush after those guys. And I got the back side of my water pump cleaned off too. Alright, so there we got just our gaskets in place with our bolts hanging in there. And you can see, hopefully you can see, they line up pretty good when they're just hanging on there. So hopefully when we put it on there, they'll all line up pretty good. And we gotta ever so carefully slide this whole operation in place. So if I can get at least 2 bolts in each side started, and then I know my gasket will stay in place. So I don't know if there's a correct pattern to be tightening these guys down with, but I'm just gonna go with doing my 2 outside ones on each side, my 2 inside ones on each side. Little radiator hose, heater hose, second heater hose, or first, and we'll just clamp them guys back on. Then we got our idler pulley. Alright, so we're putting our belt back on, and as I said before, your truck should have a little guide on how it goes. There's a little diagram right there. We got a V8 engine, so that's it. So crank that guy back over. There we go. Alright, next step, let's get our fan back in. Get that in there in a good spot.